Vampire Book 1, Chapter 11. You need something to wear? Lisa asked. I glanced over at her. We were waiting for Miss Nagy's Salvek art class to start, and I was preoccupied with listening to Mia adamantly deny the class claims about her parents to one of her friends. It is not like they are servants or anything, she exclaimed, clearly frustrated. Straightening her face, she tried for halfness. They are practically advisors. The drovers don't decide anything without them. I cooked on a laugh, and Lisa shook her head. You're enjoying this way too much. Because it is awesome. What could you just ask me? Why don't you just ask me? I dug through my bag messily looking for my lip gloss. I made a face when I found it. It was almost empty. I don't know where I was going to score some more. I asked if you need something to wear tonight. She said, well, yeah, of course I do. But none of your stuff fits me. What are you going to do? I shrugged my shoulder, improvised like always. I don't really care anyway. I just glad Kira was letting me go. We had an assembly tonight. It was number one All Santa's Day, which also meant we could been back almost a month now. A royal group was visiting the school, including Queen Tatiana herself. Honestly, that was not what excited me. She could visit the academic before it was pretty common and lot less cool than it sounded. Besides, after living among humans and elected leaders, I don't think much of still royals. Still, I could not get permission to I could gotten permission to go because everyone else could be there. It was a chance to hang out with actual people for a change and not stay locked in my dorm room. A little freedom was definitely worth the pain of sitting through a few boring speeches. I don't stay to chat with Lisa after school like I usually did. Dremet had stuck to his promise about extra training, and I was trying to stick to mine. I now had two additional hours of practice with him, one before and one after class. The more I watched him in action, the more I understood the badass god reputation. He clearly knew a lot. His six Monja marks proved as much, and I burned to have him teach me what he knew. When I arrived at the gym, I noticed he was wearing a t-shirt and loose running pants as opposites to his usual jeans. It was a good looking for him. Really good. Stop looking, I immediately told myself. He positioned me so that we stood facing each other on the mat and crossing his arms. What is the first problem you will run into when facing a strigoi? They are immortal? Thinks of something more basic. More basic than that, I considered. They could be bigger than me and strong. Most strigoi, unless they had been human first, has the same height as the Morai cousins. Strigoi also had a better strength, reflex, and sense than vampires. That is why Guardians trained so hard. We had a learning curve to compromise for. Trimet noted that makes it difficult but not impossible. You can usually use a person's extra height and weight against them. He turned and demonstrated several maneuvers, pointing out where to move and how to strike someone. Going through the motions with him, I gained some insights into why I took such a regular beating in group practice. I observed his techniques quickly and could not wait to actually use them. Near the end of our time together, he let me try. Go ahead, he said. Try to hit me. I don't need to be told twice. Lunging forward, I tried to land a blow and was promptly blocked and knocked down onto the mat. Pain surged through my body, but I refused to give in to it. I jumped again and hoping to catch him off guard. I don't. After several more failed attempts, I stood up and held out my hands in a gesture of truce. Okay, what am I doing wrong? Nothing. I was not convinced. If I was not doing anything wrong, I could have rendered your unconscious by now. Unlikely, your moves are all correct, but this is the first time you have really tried. I have done it for years. I shook my head and rolled my eyes at his older and wiser manner. He could once told me he was 24. Whatever you say, Grandpa. Can we try it again? We are out of time. Don't you want to get ready? I looked at the dusty clock on the wall and picked up. Almost time for the band to go. The thought made me giddy. I feel like Cinderella, but without the clothes. Hell yeah, I do. He walked off ahead of me, studying him carefully. I realized I could not let the opportunity go by. I leapt on his back, positioning myself exactly the way he taught me. I had the element of surprise. Everything was perfect, and he could not even see me coming. Before I could make contact, he spun around at a ridiculous high speed. In one drift moment, he grabbed me like I waited nothing and threw me to the ground, pinning me there. I groaned. I don't do anything wrong. His eyes looked lively into mine as he held my wrist, but he don't look as serious as he had during the lesson. He seems to find this funny. The battle cry sort of gave you away. Try not to yell next time. Could it have really made a difference? I have gained quite. He thought about it. No, probably not. I signed loudly, still in too much of a good mood to really let this disappointment get me down. There was some advantage to having such a kick ass mentor, one who was also happened to have a foot of height on me and outweighed me considerably, and that was not even considering his strength. He was not bulky, but his body had a lot of hard, lean muscles. If I could ever beat him, I could beat anyone. All of a sudden, it occurred to me that he was still holding me down. The skin on his fingers was warm as he clutched my wrists. His face hovered inches from my own, and his legs and torso were actually pressing against me. Some of his long brown hair hung around his face, and he appeared to be noticing me too, almost like he had the night in the longo. And oh god, did he smell good? Breathing became difficult for me, and it had nothing to do with the workout or my lungs being crushed. I could have given anything to be able to read his mind right then. Ever since that night in the long, I have noticed him watching me with the same serious expression. He never actually did it during the trainings themselves. Those were business, but before and after, he could sometimes lighten up just a little, and I could see him look at me in a way that was almost admiring. And sometimes, if I was really lucky, he could smile at me, and a real smile too, not the dry one that accommodated the scare and we toasted around so often. I don't want to admit it to anyone, not to Lisa, not even to myself. But some days I have lived for those smiles. They lit up his face, gorgeous, no longer adequate, described him. Hoping to appear calm, I tried to think of something professional and guardian related to say. Instead, I said, you got any other moves to show me? His lips twitched, and for a moment, I thought I was going to get one of those smiles. My heart leapt. Then, with visible effort, he pushed the smile back and once more became my tough love mentor. He shifted off me, leaned back on his heels, and rose. Come on, we should go. I scrambled to my own feet and followed him out of the gym. He don't look back as he walked, and I mentally kicked myself on the way back to my room. I was crushing on my mentor, crushing on my older mentor. I had to be out of my mind. He was 7 years older than me, old enough to be my, well, okay, nothing, but still older than me. 7 years was a lot. He could be learning to write when I was born, when I could been learning to write and throw books at my teachers. He probably been kissing girls. Probably lot of girls. Consider how he looked. I so did not need his compliment in my life right now. I found a passable sweater back in my room, and after a quick shower I had headed off across the campus to the reception. Despite the looming stone walls, fancy statues, and tortoise on the outside of the building, the academics insides were quite modern. We had Wi Fi, fluorescent lights, and just about anything else technology you could imagine. The commons in particular looked pretty much like the cafeteria I had been eaten in while in the Portland and Chicago, with simple rectangle tables, smoothing tap walls, and light little room off of the side where our delicious prepared meals were served. Someone had to at least hung framed black and white photos along the walls in an effort to decorate it, but I don't really consider pictures of vase and leafless trees art. Tonight, however, someone had managed to transform the normally being commons into a bone-filled dining room. Vases spilling over the Christmas roses and delicate white lilies growing candles. Tablecloths made of, wait for what? Blood red linen, the effort was gorgeous. It was hard to believe this was the same place I usually ate chicken patties sandwiches in. It looked fit for, well, a queen. The tables had been arranged in straight lines, creating an aisle down the middle of the room. We had assigned seating, and naturally I could sit anywhere near Lisa. She sat in the front with the other Morai. I was in the back with the non-voice, but she did caught my eyes when I entered and flashed me a smile. She borrowed a dress from Natalie, blue, silky, and strapless, that looked amazing with her pale features. Who could know Natalie owned anything so good? It made my sweater lose few cool points. They always conduct these formal boutiques in the same way. A head table sat on the dais at the front of the room where we could all watch Queen. Titan and other royalty dinner guardians lined the walls, stiff and formal as statue. Dremet stood among them, and a weird feeling twisted my stomach as I recalled what had happened in the gym. His eyes started straight ahead, as if focusing on nothing and everything in the room at once. When the time came for the royal entrance, all stood up respectfully and watched as they walked down the aisle. I recognized a few, mostly those who had children attending the academic. Victor Dev Shevak was among them, walking slowly and with a cane. While I was happy to see him, I stood to watch each agonizing steps he took towards the front of the room. Once that group has passed, four Solomon guardians with red and black pins, stripped jackets entered the commons. Everyone but the guardians along the walls snack into our knees in a silly show of royalty. What a lot of ceremony and posting. I thought really Morai monarchs were chosen by the previous monarch from within the royal families. The king or the queen could not choose one of his or her own reasons, and a council from the noble and royal families could despite the choose with enough cause. That almost never happened though. Queen Tatiana followed her guards, wearing a red silk dress and matching jacket. She was in her early 60s and had dark gray hair bobbed to her chin and crowned her with a Miss American type tiara. She moved into the room slowly, like she was taking a stroll. Four more guardians at her back. She moved through the non voice section far quickly, though she did nod and smile here and there. Dampiers might just be the half human, illegitimate children of the Morai, but we trained and dedicate our lives to serving and protecting them. The likelihood was strong that many of us gathered here could die young, and the Queen had to show her respect for that. When she got to the Morai section, she passed longer and actually spoke to a few students. It was a big deal to be acknowledged, mostly a sign that someone's parents had gotten in good with her. Naturally, the royals got the most attentions. She don't really say much to them. That was all that interesting, mostly just a lot of fancy words. Vasila Dragmoroi. My head shot up. Alarm coursed through the bond at the sound of her name, breaking protocol. I pushed out of my position and wiggled over to her, get better view. Knowing no one could ever notice me with the queen herself had personality singled out the last name of the Dragmorai. Everyone was eager to see what the monsieur had to say to Lisa, the runaway princess. We had heard you have returned. We are glad to have the Dragmorai back. Even though only one remains, we deeply regret the loss of your parents and your brother. They were among the finest of the Morai. Their deaths are truly tragedy. I could never really understood the royal breathing, but otherwise everything sounded okay. You have an interesting name, she continued. Many heroines in Russian fatales are named Vas- Vasiliza and Vasiliza the Brave. Wesley's the beautiful. They are different young women, all having the same name and the same excellent qualities strength, intelligence, disciplines, and virtue, all encompassing the great things, triumphing over their advisors. Likewise, the Ragmorai name commands its own respect. Ragmorai king and queens have ruled wisely and just in our history. They have used their powers for miraculous ends. They have slain Strigoi, fighting right alongside the Guardians. They are royals for a reason. She waited a moment, letting the weight on her words sink in. I could feel the mood changing in the room, as well as the surprise and shy pleasure creeping out from Lisa. This could shake the social balance. We could probably expect a few vampires trying to get in good with Lisa tomorrow. Yes, Titan continued. You're doubtably named with power. You're doubly named with power. Your names represent the finest qualities people have to offer, and here come back in time to deeds of greatness and valor. She paused for a moment. But as you have demonstrated, names don't make a person, nor do they have any bearing on how that person turns out. And with that verbal slap in her face, she turned away and continued her position. A collective shock filled the room. I briefly contemplated and then dismissed any attempts at jumping into the asile and tackling the queen. Half a dozen guardians could have me down on the floor before I could even take a 5 steps. So I sat impatiently through the dinner, all the while feeling Lisa absolute mortification. When the post dinner reception followed, Lisa made a beeline for the doors leading out or to the courtyard. I followed, but got delayed, having to leave around and avoid the mingling, socializing people. She could wander outside to an adjacent courtyard on that matched the academic's garden external style. A roof of carved twisting wood covered the garden with a little holes here and there to let in some light, but not enough to cause damage to morai. Trees, leaves now gone for the winter, lined the areas and garden paths leading out to the gardens courtyard and the main quadrangle. A pond, also emptied for the winter, lay in the corner, and standing over it was an imposing statue of Stein Valdemar himself, carved of a grey rock. He wore long robes and had a beard and mustache. Running a corner, I stopped when I saw Natalie had been beaten to Lisa. I considered interrupting but stopped before they could see me. Spying might be bad, but I could certainly very curious to hear what Natalie had to say to Lisa. She could not have said that. Natalie said she wore a yellow dress similar in cut to Lisa's, but somehow lacked the grace and pose to make it look as good. Yellow was also a terrible color on her. It clashed with her black hair, which she could put up into an off center bun. It was not right, she went on. Don't let it bother you. Kind of late for that. Lisa's eyes were locked firmly on the stone. Walk away below. She was wrong. She is right, Lisa exclaimed. My parents and Andrew, they could have hated me for what I did. No, they could not have. Natalie spoke in a gentle voice. It was stupid to run away, irresponsible. So what? You made a mistake. I make mistakes all the time. The other day I was doing this assignment in science and it was for chapter 10 and I could actually read chapter 11. Natalie stopped herself and in a remarkable show of resistance got herself back on the track. People change. We always changing, right? You're not the same as you were then. I'm not the same I was then. Actually, Natalie seems exactly the same to me, but that don't bother me so much anymore. She got grown on me. Besides, she added, was running away really a mistake? You must have done it for a reason. You must have gotten something out of it, right? There was a lot of bad stuff going on with you, was not there? With your parents and your brother, I mean, maybe it was the right thing to do. Lisa had a smile. Both of us were pretty sure Natalie was trying to find out why we could have left. Just like everyone in the school, she sort of sucked at being sneaky. I don't know if it was. No, Lisa answered. I was weak. Andrew could not have run away. He was so good at everything, good at getting along with people and all that royal crap. You're good at that too. I guess, but I don't like it. I mean, I like people, but most of what they do is so fake. That is what I don't like. Then don't feel bad about not getting involved, Natalie said. I don't hang out with all the peoples either, and look at me, I'm just fine. Daddy says he don't care if I hang out with the royals or not. He just wants me to be happy. And that, I said, finally making my appearance, is why he should be ruling instead of that bitch of a queen. He got robed. Natalie nearly jumped 10 feet. I felt pretty confident her vocabulary of swear words most considered of Goli and Dan. I wondered where you were, said Lisa. Natalie looked back and forth between us, suddenly seeming a little embarrassed to be right between the best friends' dream team. She shifted uncomfortably and tucked some messy hair behind her. Well, I should go find Daddy. I will see you back in the room. See you, said Lisa, and thanks. Natalie hurried off. Does she really call him Daddy? Lisa cut me a look. Leave her alone. She is nice. She is, actually. I heard what she said, and as much as I hate to admit it, there was nothing that I could really make fun of. Was all true. I passed. I will kill her, you know. The queen, not Natalie. Screw the guardians. I will do it. She cannot get away with that. God, Rose, don't say that. They will arrest you for treason. Just let it go. Let it go after what she did to you in front of everyone. She don't answer or even look at me. Instead, she toyed absent-mindedly with the branches of the scraggle bush that had gone dormant for the winter. There was a vulnerable look after about her that I recognized and feared. Hey, I lowered my voice. Don't look like that. She does not know what she is talking about, okay? Don't let this get you down. Don't do anything you should not. She glanced back at me. It was going to happen again, is not it? She whispered. Her hand, still clutching the tree, began to tremble. Not if you don't let it. I tried to look at her wrists without being too obvious. You have not. No, she shook her head and blinked back tears. I have not wanted to. I was upset. I have not wanted to. I was upset after the fox, but it has been okay. I like the costing thing. I miss seeing you, but everything is being alright. I like. She passed. I could hear the word forming in her mind. Christian. I wish you could not do that. Or could not. Sorry. Do I need to give you the Christians your psychotherapy loser talk again? I think I have got it memorized after the last 10 times, she muttered. I started to launch into number 11 when I heard the sound of laughter and the chatter of high heels on stone. Mia walked towards us with a few friends in tow, but no Aaron. Immediately, my defense snapped on internally. Lisa was still shaken over the queen's comments. Sorrow and humiliation were swelling inside her. She felt embarrassed over what the others must think of her now and kept thinking about how her family could have hated her for running away. I don't believe that, but it felt real to her, and her dark emotions shrunched and shrunched. She was not okay, no matter how casual she could just try to act, and I was worried she might do something riskless. Mia was the last person she needed to see right now. What do you want? I demanded. Mia smiled haftily at Lisa and ignored me, taking a few steps forward. Just wanted to know what it is like to be so important and so royal. You must be so excited that the queen talked to you. Giggles surfaced from the gathering group. You are standing too close. I stepped between them, and Mia flinched a little, possibly still worried I might break her arm. And hey, at least the queen know her name, which is more than I can say for you and your want to be royal act or your parents. I could see the pain that caused her. Man, she wanted to be royal so badly. At least I see my parents, she retooted. At least I know who they are both are. God only knows who your father is. And your mom is one of the most famous guardians around. But she could not care less about you either. Everyone knows she never visits. Probably was glad when you were gone, if she even noticed. That hurt. I clenched my teeth. Yeah, well, at least she is famous. She really does advise royals and nobles. She don't clean up after them. I heard one of his friends snicker behind her. Mia opened her mouth, no doubt to unleash one of the many retweets she could to accumulate. Since the story started being around when the light bulb suddenly went off in her head. It was you, she said, eyes wide. Someone told me, just started it. But he could not have known anything about me. He got it from you when you slept with him. Now, she was really starting to piss me off. I don't sleep with him. Mia pointed at Lisa and glared back at me. So that's it, huh? You do her dirty works because she is too pathetic to do it herself. You're not always going to be able to protect her, she warned. You're not safer either. Empty threats. I leaned forward, making my voice as meaningless as possible. In my current mood, it was not difficult. Yeah, try and touch me now and find out. I hoped she could. I wanted her to. We don't need her messed up Vendetta in our lives just now. She was a distraction. One I very much wanted to punch right now. Looking past her, I saw Dremet move out in the garden, eyes searching for something or someone. I had a pretty good idea who it was. When he saw me, he strode forward, shifting his attention when he noticed the crowd gathered around us. Guardians can smell a fight a mile away. Of course, your 6 years old could have smelled a fight. Drummond stood beside me and crossed his arms. Everything is alright? Sure thing, Guardian beloved. I smiled as I said that. But I was furious, raging even. This whole conversation had only made Lisa feel worse. We were just swapping family stories. You ever heard Mia's? It is fascinating. Come on, said Mia to her followers. She lead them off, but not before she could give me one last chilling look. I don't need to read her mind to know what it is. This is not over. She was going to try to get one or both of us back. Fine, bring it on, Mia. I'm supposed to take you back to your dorm room, Dreamer told me dryly. You were not able to start a fight, were you? Of course not, I said, my eyes still starting the empty doorway. Mia has disappeared though. I don't start fights where people can see them. Rose, groaned Lisa. Let's go. Good night, princess. He turned, and but I don't move. You're going to be okay, Liz? She nodded. I'm fine. It was such a lie. I could not believe she had to nerve to try to put it past me. I don't need the bond to see tears shining in her eyes. We should never have come back to this place, I realized bleakly. Liz, she gave me a small and sad smile and nodded in Dimmit's direction. I told you, I'm fine. You have got to go. Reluctantly, I followed him. He leaned me out towards the other side of the garden. We may need to add an extra training on self control, he noted. I have plenty of self control. Hey! I stopped talking as I saw Christian slip past us, moving down the path we could just come from. I don't see him at the reception, but if Kirova had released me to come tonight, I suppose she could have done the same for him. You're going to see Lisa? I demanded, shifting my mere rage to him. He stuffed his hands into his pockets and gave me the look of bad boy indifference. What if I am? Rose, this is not the time, said Dermot. But it was so the time. Lisa had ignored my warnings about Christian for weeks. It was time to go to the source and stop the ridiculous flirtation once and for all. Why don't you just leave her alone? Are you messed up and desperate for attention that you cannot tell when someone does not like you? He called. You're some crazy stalker and she knows it. She told me all about your weird obsession. How you're always hanging out at the attic together. How you set Rock on fire to impress her. She thinks you're a freak, but she is too nice to say anything. His face had paled and something dark changed in his eyes. But you're not too nice. No, not when I feel sorry for someone. Enough, said Remit, stirring me away. Thanks for helping then, snapped Christian, his voice dripping with animosity. No problem, I called back over my shoulder. When we got gone a little ways, I stole a glance behind me and saw Christian standing just outside the garden. He stopped working and now stood starting down the path that led to Lisa in the courtyard. Shadows covered his face as he thought, and then, after a few moments, he turned around and headed back towards the Morado room.